Hi, this is Drumsound.
And this is Bassline Smith. We're here today to take you through the process of how we created one of our early album tracks called Close.
This track was done in 2010. We had it on an old system, so what we're going to do is recreate the whole thing for you with...
Well, you're going to be using Studio One and PreSonus, aren't we?
Studio One and PreSonus, and updating techniques where we can.
So yeah, the reason we're using PreSonus is because obviously when we did Close in 2009, 2010, it was all done on Cubase. Now we've migrated everything over to Studio One and PreSonus. It's 64-bit.
Which means we can now utilise all 24 gig of RAM, and we can basically, the time stretching, there's so much things that we love about PreSonus. The time stretching is fantastic. The fact that it obviously is 64-bit, and we spend a lot of time exporting stems and things like that, and it can do it really quick. So it's a phenomenal piece of kit. So that's really cool. So what we're going to do first of all is to show you how we did the break. We always start with the break, the kick and snare kind of thing. This obviously has been pre-processed, but what we're going to do is basically show you how we would have done it. And the tricks and tips that we would use generally to make a Drumsound Bassline Smith production.
Another benefit for PreSonus was the fact that Melodyne comes as standard as the editor, and yeah, that's a massive benefit for us. So yeah, we're going to start with the kick and the snare. It's already been pre-processed a little bit, but what we're going to do is we'll get up the yeah.
So we'll just put always what we put on the master bus is the frequency analyzer. And since we've begun using 64-bit, we decided the best one we found is the Blue Cat frequency analyzer. This one, just because we always used to use the Roger Nichols digital analyzer thing, but that was obviously it's not been updated. I think he died, or something like that. Of which now we went for this because it's 64-bit,
yeah.
And we find that it's as quick and as accurate as what we're after. It also got the spectrogram as well, which is really quite handy. So yeah, we'll start with the kick and the snare. Do you want to We're going to add the fab filter.
Yeah, let's add the fab filter to.
And what you can see here, main reasons why we use fab filter, we love it so much because you can focus the compression on a particular frequency, which is really cool. And that's in the expert mode. You can also using this sort of thing here. Press that. You can actually see
visually
what's going on, and that really helps how we're doing things. But if you press that anyway, go to expert mode, you can actually then really target the frequencies that you're really after, and which frequencies you want to really hone in on.
We're normally homing in on around the 30 to about 100, 150 for the kick drum. As you can hear, that's the actual frequency that we're working on just there. Auditions, fine tunes into that part there. You take that off.
And you can obviously see that where it's happening. If you turn the ratio up and things like that, you can clearly hear the difference and see the difference of how good that is. Which is obviously because it's been pre-processed already. We don't really want to change it too much. So, but that's how we would have done it in the first place. So, right, lovely. Right, next one.
We always put an analyzer on there as well, don't we? So we can kind of
keep a general idea of where things are coming through. So, for example, that kick there, like what we wanted. Certainly, this particular area here, from 101. Oops, go back one. You can see sort of from around 100 to 200, almost from 40 to there. It's really quite coming in quite good. We'll turn it down just a little bit so it doesn't poke too high over. So then we're going to work on the snare. In fact, actually, if we want to just quickly, what we could do And what we did do on the original one is add probably a bit of EQ on that.
Yeah, from the Pro Q.
Yeah, so what we'll do is just add a bit of that onto the bus. And here, which really helps when you've got the analyzer on as well, you can really sort of poke through and home in what you really want, like I say. So that now is even the 101 sort of side. It's really coming through, and that's what we want. We want it to peak just at that little bit. We don't want too much thud, so we've cut that down a little bit as well. But obviously, like I said, we have done it before, so just something like that.
The important thing is to have your kick and snare punchy in the mix at the right frequencies, and taking out the frequencies below those frequencies that you don't need, particularly the kick drum area, because you want to leave enough for the bass and the sub.
Another benefit of PreSonus is that if when you save your preset, say here for example, it then saves it in there. So it's a quick, again, all about the workflow with us, to be honest. We love creating that vibe and then working together on that, bouncing off that and working with the vibe rather than being too technical and spending a long time doing it. It's nice to be able to move quite quickly, and we find PreSonus helps that workflow as far as doing things like that is concerned. And you can drag and drop, and we can move things through things quite quickly. Like I say, this thing here, the EQ is pretty much standard. It's just a matter of tweaking. For each kick and snare that we do, it's a great place to start rather than having to, set
and then you can fine tune it depending on which one you use. Small,
a bell EQ and things like that. It takes a bit of time. So if we just move quite quickly through it, it just means that our overall workflow, and we can get to the fun bit of actually making the tune kind of thing. So, but yeah, that's pretty much what we do. So we have an EQ and a compressor, say that on the kick drum. Then we move to the snare drum. Obviously, we'll do pretty much the same thing there again. Like I say, we have already set up a standard preset, which is kind of like it's on the actual thing itself. It's a derivative of the basic punch setting that was on there.
And that is actually a preset on the actual Pro C.
Yeah. And so what happens again with a similar kind of thing, when you press, you can hear. If I'll turn it off first, so you can hear it. So when you then add it now, you can see what's basically happening, and then depending on how much or how little you turn up the ratio and the threshold, you can do different things to it. So you can either get more punch, or get the release nice and sharp. You can add like that click if you want to it. But like I say, this has been already preset, so we're only going to do it a little bit today just to show you, basically how we would have done it. So again, we're focusing. We can either really control the focus and really we go between, again, sort of like 100, possibly 300 or something like that. Or if we want to get the whole all the way up to the high bit as well, which is really cool, and we find it really helpful. Again, same thing again. We'll just add a little. We'll just make sure that the EQ. Again, by adding that little notch there, you can almost hear like this sort of a ring. Now, obviously, we'd already done that once, so we open up the frequency again, and you can see that it's really pushing that through on there on the final mix. Another beauty of using this Pro Q is because it's the analyzer is actually in the thing itself, which is really handy.
See it underneath. So the GUE for our filters are absolutely, the GUIs, we love them, don't we?
Yeah.
We love using it.
Sort of look at that now. So now it's really coming through in that 200. Obviously, we don't need to do that much, but and then turn that down a little bit. We want to try and keep everything, so it's not going too high up at the top.
Okay, so now we'll move on to the hi-hat then.
Now this hi-hat there is if I remember rightly, we did that using the live hi-hat from Addictive Drummer, I think, if I remember rightly. Just a simple 4/4 live hit that just really gives it that kind of. We like our drums to be very organic, so it's got like that live sounding edge. That's almost a bit, because we come from a break kind of background. We like hearing jungle breaks and stuff, but we also like live sounding to give it that kind of real bouncy kind of feel to it. Turn the other lights on so we can see that.
Yep. If you've got the analyzer on, you can see basically where that hi-hat is coming through on the frequency. We're going to just take out that there. We don't really want that. We'll kind of EQ that out there. And that sits about
a little bit lower down. Yeah, that's fine. The beauty of that is, again, it's not conflicting. In an ideal world, what we want is like a kick, a snare, a hi-hats, all to be kind of have their own space within the mix. And if you think of it like that, as you want your snare drum around about sort of 100 to 200, your kick drum up to 100, with not too much bass, so you can fit the sub in. It all makes sense. It's almost like a little jigsaw. So next one,
and we like to put a drum bus on those, don't we?
Yeah. We're going to put them all through a drum bus. That's the one. Okay. We rename that drum bus.
So basically, what we like to do is send the drums, the percussion, to a drum bus. And the reason for that is because we want the percussion all glued together, and we've been using breaks for many years, and we still use breaks now. If we send all the percussion to a drum bus, we've got control over that whole bus, and it kind of glues it all together. So even though obviously we're using various different elements, you've still got the hard kick and the snare, the punchy kick and the snare, but you've got elements glued together through the side topic glue, and it still feels like it's a bit breakified. Yeah, we just
definitely. Yeah, well, it's the glue obviously, mate. It's great because it's called the glue, because it actually does sound. It actually makes out that it does glue things together, and it seems to, because it's so transparent and stuff like that. We really find that Cytomic is one of our favourite bus compressors. It just really does make everything sort of sit together nicely. It dips and goes together really well. And we find that once we've added all the elements, that actually you'll find that even by having a break, some hi-hats and all that kind of stuff, it really turns it back into almost a break which is really what we want to do. We don't want it to sound like it's all too individual. We want it all to gel together nicely, which is kind of like, and we found that, like I say, the Cytomic one seems to be one of the better ones at doing this. That's so transparent, and you can't actually really tell that it's on, even though it's quite a low ratio as well. So that's cool. Right. Next we're going to add the brake, the lovely Hot Pants brake.
There we go.
Fantastic. Right, so what we're going to do, pretty much the same thing. We're going to first of all cut out the bottom end to make sure there's no conflicting in the low end area.
Okay.
And then just drag that low cut one I've made there.
Oh, you want to use that one?
Well, you can do. It's pretty much the same thing. Just again, a simple way to save time. We want to keep that little shaker in there.
Yeah, there we go.
So somewhere around there, and just make sure there's nothing down this end again.
Yep.
Turn down a little bit.
You want to do the bus bit?
Yeah, we can do the next bit. Okay, so what we're going to do, just again send that to the drum bus. And another little trick that we found is using the volume shaper by the Cable Guys, which is it's something we've picked up quite recently, in fact, and that actually takes the bar, and we can actually duck little sections of that break to really enhance the fact, so it sounds more like a break as it would do, to get that kind of shuffle going and stuff like that. It's a really great little plugin, and obviously you can see the wave. In fact, so much so we've added one to the master bus as well for when we're doing the mix down later on. Turn it off. So yeah, that's that one. Okay, and then again, that's all going through to the drum bus, which actually the glues is not only is it great for gluing things, it also adds a really subtle sort of brick wall limiter to the drum bus too, which is good if you accidentally go over and it can just reduce your peaks a little bit. We're nearly there now. Just a couple of things to add. You want to go with the Amon one?
Do you want to tell them what we're doing?
Yeah, basically because we've been doing it a fair while, I don't think we've ever not used an Amon in our tracks. It's almost standard to do that. So what we've done, we processed this a while back, and this is basically just a simply gated Amon. So we get the sort of the really fantastic sort of ride kind of. It's such a fantastic noise that we just again really makes your break sound live and stuff like that. Again, by dipping the kick and the snare of the actual Amon break and bringing that forward. So basically doing the same again. Just cutting out that bottom end. Again, so I'll show you the DUI. Yeah, somewhere around there, between 200 and 500, I think is cool. And then send that again to the drum bus.
That's
fine. That's fine.
Send that to the drum bus.
We go now to the drum bus again, and turn it down. Again, you can hear it's really starting to. It's only subtle, but it's also just giving more fluidity to the break and stuff like that. And then nearly done now. We've got one more break that we want to add, which is a live break. Again, when you
solo
that to the gated Amon, it's a really great little. Again, take the top end off, bottom end, sorry. And that's it now, because that will basically just load your kick and snare. Turn down a bit. Now, if we look at our blue cat frequency analyzer again, you find that the top end's all down here, and fingers crossed, like it is, everything is kind of down there. So obviously there's a clear space here for our kick and snare to come through, and that's kind of pretty much where we are. Right, there's only one more thing to do here, and that is to be aware of the mid and the side, because obviously drums are so much more powerful if they hit straight down the middle. So we want to make sure that we've taken out any anything that's coming out the side. So we just want to use this BX control by Brainworks, and we'll just make sure that there's. If you solo that section there, you can hear that all that break. In fact, that one's not turned on there yet. You can hear what's coming out of the side. Now, mid and side is something at the time when we made Close, we weren't really up on.
Yeah.
But with something we've been trying to take into consideration a lot more nowadays. And therefore, what we do is you just solo that, and then you can actually take that up there and actually EQ that bit out. But we only really that bothered past sort of the 200, 300 mark, so it doesn't conflict. But now that hopefully should be still a little bit wide, but generally, as you see here using Presonus's phase meter, you can see generally going down the middle, just a little bit on either side. Now you could mono it completely, but we like to keep it on just a little bit, just because, you know, again, it's more exciting to the ears. Yeah. So that is our little drum section. So just play that so you can hear it again. You want to press play? Now what Simon's using here is the beat control, which is actually, it's a really handy little piece of kit which probably we'll explain more later, but it's just so we can a few benefits of what we can do with it is that, say for example, we're recording vocals, or or even want to hear the mix back from a further. But say like if one person's at the keyboard, we can actually press record, or we can even tweak massive on here as well, which helps when there's 2-3 of us in the studio at the same time. Although it's quite compact. We need to try and make the most of what we've got, and this little plug-in here is actually
quite handy,
really handy.
Yeah.
And you can open any instrument or whatever. It comes up in this separate window, but we'll go into that a little bit more later on. But so it also does transport and things like that. Pretty handy. Right. Okay. Next one, we're going to go for. We're just going to import. Let's turn the volume down on the master one.
Yeah.
What we're going to do now is quickly just. Besides just drag these two little edits in, we're going to then go through the actual the stem noises that's used in close. In close, we have quite a few noises, quite a few different elements. There we go. We're in. So when we started making the wall of sound as well, we particularly wanted to get kind of like organic, natural sounding noises in, and the whole album it's kind of a theme that we've gone through all the way, using kind of like pianos, guitars, strings, and vocals and stuff like that. Close was pretty much one of the first ones we did using that. We used a few tools. And VSDI instruments. This one, the first one, the guitar, was using a plugin called Real Guitar 2, which we find has got a really sort of natural sounding, guitar, sort of acoustic guitar noise to it, as you'll hear. It's even got the release of, when you actually strum the guitar, and the release of your fingers and the strings and stuff. We also, at the same time, did the same chords, but utilising a strumming, the same sort of, whereas they were single notes, this was a strumming kind of thing, and then we added those together to get. So it's got a real dynamics of having the acoustic guitar in there. We also had a piano, which is again through a contact instrument, Native Instruments, which we use. We use a lot of the Native Instruments stuff, certainly off Complete 8 and Complete 9. This one was one that came bundled with that, I think. And again, like a sort of an arpeggiated piano. Got a beautiful reverb to it, and it's almost quite kind of like you're feeling it quite hard, really, but it's got a great sound to it that we thought went really well. Again, we then added the initial strings, again using session strings, which comes with Complete 9, and we've had that for a while, and that just put the final touches to the intro. And then, so when you add the piano as well, it really adds sort of a whole movement to the intro and stuff, and you can hear that it's, it doesn't sound like obviously no synthesis involved as such at that point. And the great thing about Close was it went from being so organic, and then it just cuts on itself, and then in we go for the big drop. So just chatting about that briefly. There's also, to keep things in key, we find it helps if we have like something like this was actually made in F. There's something that goes throughout the back, that sits in the background nicely, but also keeps us in key when we're actually playing the chords and everything else. It's just it's you know, it's only a simple note, but it actually works really well. We also find it actually brings everything together and glues everything together as well, just by having that noise there. It can only be quite quiet, but if you hear what it almost blends in. Right, so we then did pretty much the same, and added all those to a bus. We call that music bus. Again, we only do that through just ease, really, so we can sort of, you know, mute and solo it. But also we find, again, by adding a simple, you know, the cytomic glue again, it also just again brings it together. Again, it's only little, but the fact is transparent. It just sort of brings it together and turns it into a piece. Cuts out any wild peaks and troughs and whatnot. So that's really cool. Nice and simple. Right. Okay, just to put the edit in quickly there. So now that should be. Right, what we did here was, obviously this is, again, has been pre-processed. To get to the end of the bar, with close, what we were trying to get all the way through was the build up to the end of the 16 bar. You know, so it really ends up really high. And the way that we did that was by adding those two breaks at the end. We found it sort of just kind of really simulates you know, like a crescendo at the end of the bars, which will, when we do the bass, you'll understand a little bit more. But and that was just using the think break and a classic aiming break. Okay, we're pretty much there. It's a basic layout as well. And what we're going to do next is show you how we did the basses. Okay, again, we've saved these here to just ease of use, but so we can show you this. The fantastic thing of Presonus is the automation. Now, when we used to use Cubase, it used to be you had to remember program numbers and things like that. Whereas the beauty of Presonus is it's a simple drag and drop. So, say for example, on this project here, we used all 4 of these macros. So what you do, you just press on one, and then in the left hand side, there it is. All of a sudden, 1, 2. Modulate, and the last one being wavetable position. Now that means now that so on those 4 macros are then being, you know, that we can automate them all from here. So what we'll do quickly is just add the MIDI file taken from the original close, and we'll put that in, and we'll copy that over 3 times. So now we're starting to get the basis of the tune. So I'll duplicate that over. Actually, I think that was probably at the end of that one. So just cut that a sec. 16 bars rather than 8. Right. So let's have a listen now. Do you want to just press the keyboard, see so that noise? Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah, that's looking good. So this is a preset we made back in the day, 2010, and it was the reason why we went for it was generally because we'd not heard anything quite like it at the time. Obviously, Massive is a very used synth, but obviously since then it was very much used in 2010. Since then, there's a lot of FM modulation synths and stuff like that have been used. But this at the time, when we still love it, Native Instruments have really did well with this one, and we find, even when we open it now, we can still find noises that that come from nowhere really, and they're really good. So yeah, this one again we're using a comb filter, the M-Plex, because it's got a really wide wavetable position. You can start from one side and it'd be a completely different noise, which we love. It's really dirty. It's a real stinker of a noise. So what we've got there, so we've got on the actual lead itself, so the main body of the lead itself. Next one is just a simple square wave distortion, and this seems to fill in the gaps between the noises, the actual lead noise, and then the last one being the sub, which is just a simple sine wave sub. But when you actually look at it via the Blue Cat frequency, you can see it's quite peaky and can actually, it's really great. That's that sub, and the only way we managed to do that, let me just show this quickly, was in the actual program itself, which is obviously a little bit messy. We just put a little bit of, so it's a simple sine triangle wave, knocked down by 12, and then cut the high frequency off completely, which if you look at it now, it's really, the peak is just where we want it to be. And certainly on the low note, which is the F, 47 is great. Just need to turn it down a little bit. I'll try again. So we don't really want it to go too high up, because otherwise it will start inflicting on everything else. Right, so if we listen to this now, we should have the basics without any automation of. And now that is basically just being pressed. There's no automation there at all. That's just does all the work for us. We took our time when designing the preset for it to be quite easy to use and stuff like that. So there's not drastically loads of automation, but when we did, we wanted it to be quite extreme. So first of all, what we did was add the vibrate, which was simply on that main oscillator, the vibrato there, and that's channel 1, which I think that pretty much comes as standard with all the noises. And then at the end of the bar, let's just zoom out a little bit. So what we want, again, what we were trying to achieve was at the end of the bar, it's a sort of crescendo. So the way we did this was just to basically build all those noises, turn that into, get the vibrato to sound almost like it's feeding back on itself a little, and we also did the same by taking off. There obviously is a small LFO filter on there, and what we do is we actually turn that off. During that little section, so it actually even gets more and more potent. So something like that. Let's zoom in a little bit. So pretty much that's a great start. So what we did after that, we again looped over the drums, and we wanted it to get more and more intense. So we tweaked, add the fourth macro to the, if I should loop the whole thing. to the wave position to make that even more powerful on the second. So it's always building, always progressing all the way through the track. So if we then just quickly go into there, show how changing the wavetail position. Using this one here. And as you can hear, it's actually making it more and more distorted on that really key note. So 4 is that, you see. So if you press it just normally, and that's why we love the M-Plex, because it's actually on one hand it's quite sort of tonal, but then on the other it's just changed it quite a lot, if you know what I mean. And we find that was a really great noise that you can, and when you just, as you can see, just tweak it slightly, it can make a drastic difference to the noise, and which, you know, we do love using that noise. Right, okay, so that's pretty much, that's it. That's all of it. That's why it was so. Again, the hard work was all done by the preset, and if you get the preset to do all the hard work for you, then it just makes your life so much easier. So we should open listen to that now. And then there was one more little bit, which actually was the modulation oscillator, and that was again the position on 2. That seemed basically just, I don't really know what it did, but it makes it really gruff, and I'll add that there, I think, to just change again, because we wanted to progress and really sort of, you know, as the song went on, just got harder and harder. You see what I mean? So yeah. Just by a simple automation has really brought that home. So yeah, okay, that's pretty much that. Right. So what we want to do now is just quickly go through what we used on this on the bass lead to make it sit well in the mix with the distorted bass as well. So what we did was actually put those two into a bus again. We'll call that bass lead bus, wherever it's gone. Bus 1. And then we add, where is it? Closer bass lead. We added a Fab Pro Q again, on the same reasons we do everything in the sort of the mid to high region. We want to cut this area here, so the kick and the snare and the sub can really be on its own. We then added a limiter to try, because the noise is quite wild. It's quite wild, and we do get it to do quite a lot of things. We wanted to try and keep that noise at a steady noise coming through. So to really try and make sure that it never went too high up or too low down, and that's why we added the limiter on there. We added the BX control again, because when soloed on the side, we still wanted it to come through, but we didn't want it to again affect the low end. Same with the distorted bass. The distorted bass, like we said before, glues everything together, so that whenever that noise is not on, it seems to just come to the front, but it's always there, and it always maintains that constant sort of mid to high noise. Although we want it turning down considerably, so it just sits. If you see what I mean, it just means it's a constant kind of, so it's not like stopping and starting a bit too jerky. And so yeah, we're really starting to get there now. Obviously the sub, at the moment we're going to keep that on its own, and then we're going to add, firstly, a little bit of side chaining to the the bass lead bus. The reason for that being that obviously it is quite a wild noise, but we don't want it to sort of infringe on the kick and snare and the breaks that we've got. So we'll just add simply that little side chain, so it's going out of the auxiliary and just basically doing a little bit of ducking, and I'm talking just the smallest bit. I'll show you here. And by that, see, the more you turn up the ratio, you can see that that is the kick and snare, and that's just ducking just a little bit and just enough just to make sure that bass lead sits where it should be, just behind the drums, really. We're just moving along now. The next thing to just tweak was the sub bass. Again, our sub bass, when you look here, should be nice. And then when we tie that in with the drums, now it's a little bit loud because we don't really want anything going too far up. But because we EQ'd it in here, we don't generally need to EQ it again. As you can see, it's perfectly got its place here around about 47 Hz. And I think sometimes that's why when tunes are made in F, I know there's a thing about tunes, and certainly say F through to G and then through E, they all sit in the right place because drum bass, kick and snare seem to work. You know, they always seem to be sort of a kick there and a drum bass snare always seem to peak around about here. So the sub bass always, by being, you know, an F or a G or whatever, you're always pretty much in the right place for your kick and snare to sit nicely. Again, like we were saying, it's nice to be like a jigsaw puzzle with our mixers. So we're not really forcing, you know, it's the choice of the noise that we're choosing that makes the mixers sort of work for themselves, if you know what I mean. We do take, you know, listen hard to make sure that some of the noises we choose, you know, that fit nicely before we actually do it, if you know what I mean. So anyway, right, again, sub bass is like that. We can add a little, you can add another little bit of ducking to it using the Presonus. Again, we're using the Presonus little compressor. If we go into the effects, and again, if you can add some ducking to that if you want to. To be honest, it's not majorly necessary. As our kick really does poke through the mix anyway. But you know, just on the off chance it didn't, let's just add that to the sub. Again, very simple, nothing too drastic, and then we'll add that to the drum bus. So when we add the drums again, that's coming through. Just doing a slight bit of ducking, again, just so it doesn't conflict too much with the kick and snare. So we're pretty much getting there now. We look at our automation and stuff. That's all complete. Now, in an ideal world, what we'd do is probably bounce these off. But just so we're to save time, we'll just stick it like that and then move straight onto the vocal. Now the vocal on close, we got from I think it was a sample pack, and when we got it, obviously it was just flat. And using the phase meter, we'll explain what we're doing here. So why can't you see? Obviously, I want you here with me. The vocals very mono. It's very straight down the centre of the mix. But what we wanted to do, which we didn't realise at the time, we used a plugin by is it Sound Toys? Yeah, Sound Toys, and that had some sort of chorus to it, which added a really great depth to it. Here is the actual stem that we took from the actual track. Why can't you see? And you can see how wide the chorus made it as far as the phase meter goes, and so it's really, really wide and really, really open. But we didn't actually understand why that was at the time. So what we've done, we've tried to recreate that. Now, a fantastic way. I'll just load up the things here. So that's close vocal. Again, what we did to recreate how we did that was to basically put again another little limiter on there, just to try and increase the volume and decrease these peaks that you can see. And we also de-essed it using, again, the Pro C, which is a fantastic compressor for that, and just basically just targeted the frequencies up there, which is basically the S-ing. I'll just give you a quick demonstration. You can hear like the little, you can see the G layer in there, and how it basically just pulls it down where the S's are, which is really quite handy. There is a de-esser bifab filter, but that was the one we used at the time, the Pro C, to do that. There are other companies that do de-essers as well. We also, to get that, I don't know, addition off. To get the stereo sound, we really wanted it to go down the side as well. So not only was it going straight down the middle, but we also felt that by having it sent to the side, which we did obviously by using the chorus in the original. So we used the fantastic stereoizer by New Gen Audio, and this naturally seems to send everything down the side anyway, which is really, really good. So it's a demonstration. We'll just quickly solo without the stereoizer, and you can't hear anything down the side at all, obviously being a completely mono signal. By adding the stereoizer to it, instantly sends some stuff down the side, which is what we wanted, to actually, so you can hear it across the board, and it really fits in nicely with our mix. We then added, to get that extra feel of the chorus from the Sound Toys, we added a Presonus chorus. And there you have it recreated. Just needed a little bit of reverb, which we could probably get from the Presonus. We'll add that to the send, and hopefully that should be pretty much a recreation of that. So that's pretty much what we wanted with that. We needed to get that width to it. So we bring that back here, and we ended up being, which is that. So we're pretty much getting there now. Yeah, we're just going to finish off this now. So we're just going to finish off by adding, just finishing the little build-up bit. Very simply, just starting off the bass there. So I think we're pretty much there. We'll have a look at, just check the overall finished product. Simple, basic layout. Pretty much there. What I think we should do is just quickly bounce that. Just bounce that in there because it's a little bit louder. But on the whole, the levels aside, I think we're pretty much there. Just sort of mix down into the track. Your eyes and all emotion, you here with me close. You here with me close. You here with me close. Yeah. That's awesome. To check your mix at the end, if you add the volume shaper right on the end, you can also quickly see how your mix is looking in relation to the bass and all that kind of stuff. If it's too quiet, the bass will be more like that. But when the bass is on, you should make it so that the wave is much fuller. And the other thing to do is just to check with the blue frequency on how things look. So we've got a pretty good mix. It's a downward spiral from there, which is generally what we want. The sub's a little loud still. But that's it. That's pretty much how we made Close. This is Drumsound.
This is Bassline Smith.
That was how we made Close, which is available now on the Wall of Sound.